Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live stream. I am Kim, your host from IFMA. We're glad you've joined us, where we will be discussing the personalized workspace, how AI and workspace management tech is impacting how we interact with our workspaces. While we wait for everyone to join us in the live stream, let's get to know each other. Be sure to tell us where you're from and say hello. I'm Kim. I'm in Houston. I'm so excited to be here. So as you do that, we do need a couple of things from you. First of all, please like the video you're watching now. Whether you're watching us live or you're watching us recorded, this helps us to reach more FMs like you who can gain insight from this kind of great content. Also, if you're watching us live, be sure to drop your questions in the chat box as well as tell us again where you're tuning in from. So as you do that, here's some information about our format. Will be an interactive webinar with live polling questions. David, who I'll be introducing you to in a moment, will be sharing instructions with you. And there will also be a chance for you to share your specific questions with us. I'm going to encourage you again, please don't be shy. Pop them in the chat box and we will get to them as time allows. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to David to kick off today's discussion. Hi, David.
Hi there. I'm so excited to kick off the discussion today. World Workplace was the best one ever, and that means a lot because I've been doing this for a third of a century. We really feel that the built environment and the responsibilities of being a technically savvy FM is more relevant than ever, obviously. And I think now we're going to describe the Mentimeter in a bit, right? I'll first tell you a little bit about myself in 30 seconds. But after I explain to you that you should try the Mentimeter and make sure you have access. So either scan the QR code or go to menti.com and enter that particular code so you can be interactive during this entire presentation. And remember, if you're just coming on now this second, introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you're from. We're excited to see that. So for a third of a century representing just occupiers, I interact quite a bit with FM. And like I hinted at earlier, the World Workplace in Nashville was so dramatic because FM is coming to the table and feeling the extra technical responsibility as well as always being an amazing host to the internal client. Now we're witnessing this evolution in time where technology and people is not just the built environment, but it's hybrid too. It's here to stay. It's a part of the equation. We all have to solve it together. So I'm excited to share some tidbits, but more importantly, introduce John Wang, who will be our first talented leader, CEO, and co-founder of IDEA. John, if you'd step forward, it would be terrific to have you introduce yourself and your company.
Yes, David, thank you so much for the introduction. And I'm very, very excited as well to be here to talk a little bit about the emerging new workplace from the technology angle. I want to start by maybe introduce myself and my company a little bit. Is this the right time? Thank you. So IDEA is a company that I started about 20 years ago, and from the very start, we've been very focused on providing IoT technologies, including digital signage, to help companies, enterprises transform their business. So we first started with retailers, helping them to transform their traditional restaurant completely with digital menu boards. And now in the past 5-6 years, we've seen a huge surge of demand to use technology, as David introduced, in the workplace to help manage the workplace. And this has become even higher demand since the start of COVID, which is something that I think we'll spend the next few minutes talking about. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, outstanding. Now we've got Thomas. Thomas, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi, David, and good to see you again, John. And hello, everyone. It's awesome to see everyone joining from everywhere around the world. I see South Africa, plenty of states in the US and Dubai. I'm joining from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And I lead product innovation at Appspace. I've been here for around 10 years. Prior to that, I was at Cisco in the emerging technology group. Appspace is a company of roughly 350, 400 people across 12 countries. We work a lot with internal comms and workplace management teams to deliver solutions. We target a lot of the large enterprise customers across verticals. We work through a partner ecosystem, and we've been in the market for almost 20 years. So with a pretty good experience on how companies like yourself probably want to handle those challenges.
Absolutely fantastic. What a great perspective as we roll to the next slide. I'd like to say I'd noticed someone from not just Rio, where you're from, but Dubai is in the house. Atlanta, several people from the Triangle, including Fred Holder. Shout out to a fellow Mosh Pitian who joins us every week at WE's IFMA Mosh Pit.
I don't know if anyone is from Asia like I am right now. It's only a little bit past 11 p.m. So good evening.
Would someone from Asia please check in, or at least down under? Just again, drop it in the chat, because I see our numbers are swelling, and that's absolutely dynamite. Hey, I've got this opening question for John and Thomas, and I want John to go first. What problems are you solving in this post-COVID work environment with technology?
Great. I'll take that to start. So we're seeing a few emerging trends in terms of how facilities managers and corporate real estate owners are trying to tackle problems using technology. So I basically categorize them into three different areas. And first to start with, I think we all agree that there is a huge problem with managing space. We have lots of empty offices with people trying to figure out which days they want to go into the office, and management of the company trying to get as people in as possible. And when they aren't able to do that, they're trying to figure out ways to handle this, probably the top number one or number two asset on their balance sheet. There's just a lot of tough decisions that needs to be made at this moment, and we're seeing a lot of technology being introduced to help manage that. First of all, due to flexible work, I think a lot of spaces are now bookable. So part of our business is providing room scheduling panels and also desk booking devices. We're definitely seeing a huge demand for those. So you have a little tablets outside the meeting room with brightly visible status lights. So over any calendar that you choose, it could be Outlook, it could be Google Calendar. You could in advance reserve your meeting room, reserve your desks before you head into the office. And once you're in the office, you could just glance across the room and find available empty rooms that are marked with green lights. So these are some of the tools that we see people using a lot. Also, wayfinding kiosks. So I'm talking more about the hardware aspects of what's being deployed. So kiosks that help people navigate the office that might have already changed layout since the last time the employee has been there, or maybe in a new location. So these are tools that we're seeing being used to make sure the space is being reserved and used efficiently, and people have the right kind of space that they need when they take all the effort and do the travel and heading to the office. And following that, we're also seeing a very sharp rise in the demand for technology to reach companies' ESG goals, to conserve energy. I think many of us agree that building is one of the biggest sources of greenhouse gases. I think some numbers are telling as much as 40+% of the CO2s are emitted from buildings, including from construction. So being able to conserve energy while we are in the space is also of very high importance. that's being tackled using technology. So one of the things, well, we're trying to, we would like to coin the term occupancy shaping here, by meaning that we're seeing some enterprises trying to put people into a more concentrated space rather than spreading them all out throughout the building in order to, to have lighting and air conditioning only in floors where people are really occupying. So, for example, we're seeing the usage of digital signage at the entrance of buildings. So as people come in, they can see which floors have spaces available and which floors are blocked out. So by using a simple signage like that, companies can direct people to, for example, fill the third to fifth floor first before you go to the other floors. So this way, HVAC and lighting can be used in a more focused way rather than being all turned on throughout the entire building. And also, since now a lot of the information about occupancy is already in the reservation system, we can use that data to proactively or predictably understand what energy usage is going to be like, for the rest of the day. For example, one of the applications is to integrate lighting and HVAC control with room scheduling data. So HVAC systems are only turned on 15, 20 minutes before the actual meeting starts. And automatically after the meeting finishes, all the powers are cut off to conserve energy. So yeah, we're seeing now with the emergent availability of the reservation data, a lot of applications can now be done to reduce energy use. So the last point I will want to touch on is I think one thing that the pandemic has taught us is that we never know what's going to come next. So instead of pretending that we know what the future will be like, I think a lot of organizations, a lot of spaces are now building for flexibility. So, for example, facilitating spaces that are multifunctional. Again, scheduling systems can help a lot with that. So you can have a space that, based on the team that's reserving it, will have people change that into a different layout as before people actually come in and use them. And also usage data of different formats of rooms are now being collected and analyzed. So we can understand that people are actually looking for smaller meeting rooms rather than bigger ones. So the facilities team can now break up the huge rooms that are not being used into smaller spaces. So people who don't find small meeting rooms can now find rooms for themselves. So to summarize, I think 3 areas: space management, reduction of energy use, and also building for resilience are really areas where we see technology doing a lot of work to help the new workplace.
John, that's fantastic. So much to unpack right there. And we're going to have lots of time at the end to revisit this question and be interactive on the Mentimeter that you saw earlier. And a welcome to those coming in from LinkedIn, YouTube, Malibu, Verona, Italy. Are you kidding me? This is wonderful. What a terrific. So we'll get into more of these details. Let's roll this question again and ask Thomas the same thing. What problems are you seeing in this post-COVID or solving in this post-COVID workplace with technology?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and one that we could probably debate with John for many hours. The truth is we're moving to a full hybrid workplace. The pandemic has sent us all back home, and a lot of the people joining from all over the world today, I'm sure, are joining from home like I am. And a big part of that return to the office and transitioning back into the physical workplace is around workplace communication. And because we're in a hybrid workplace, we need to communicate not only into the physical workplace through digital signs and Appspace partners with IED around that, but also communicating into an employee app that everyone has on their phone or desktop, communicating in the messaging apps that we've learned to live in, like Teams, Slack, Facebook Workplace, WebEx, communicating into email, because believe it or not, it remains the #1 communication channel for internal comms. So internal comms plays a key role, preparing users to go back into the office, providing them enough information so they feel safe and secure to return in the workplace and follow guidelines. On the workplace management side, the journey into the office starts before you get into the office. It's one thing to have a panel in front of the room, but you first need to book that room. So we provide inside the Appspace app the ability for employees to look for a workspace based on new criteria. I need a huddle space to gather with my team and collaborate. I need a meeting room that can be set in an auditorium form so I can host a keynote session, or I need a desk to sit at to do some of the work I need in calls. You do that through the app, you locate the right location for your resource, you comply to some of the formalities, upload a vaccine certificate, complete a company etiquette video that you need to see, and so forth. You also invite your visitors before you head to the office. No longer will companies accept for drop-ins. People will need to be pre-registered and comply before they actually arrive on site. So there's a lot to do from home or on the go before you actually get into the physical. But once you get into the physical workplace, that's where the partnership with IDEM makes so much sense. There needs to be a transition from the digital to the physical, and that's what we provide here. So if we go to the next slide, the thing that's really important is to be able to do that through the right standards for facilities teams and workplace team, which is around safety and productivity. Can I ensure the safety of all employees? That's the number one mission of all employers, right? I don't want to bring anyone in the office if there's any risk for them. So make sure that we can provide the solution there, but also provide a lot of new tech so that you can go touchless, for example. As a visitor, you arrive on site, you present a QR code in front of a camera instead of having to touch a touch panel. Or you scan a QR code from your phone and you complete a lot of the activity on your personal device. Simplicity is an interesting one because yesterday we had one of our biggest pharma customer who informed us that Appspace was ranked the #1 app for simplifying the workplace experience. So they deployed it during the pandemic, and now employees are ranking Appspace as the app that actually helps transition back into the office. Simplicity is critical. Because if you think about it, when we were going to the office 2 years ago, you would go to your assigned seat, you would know exactly where you were going to sit, who was going to sit around you. It was easy. Now you're going into an office that's fully dynamic, where you're going to have to reserve a desk. Do you know who's going to be sitting next to you? Do you know how the desk is set up? So we need to improve the experience here. And as I reserve my desk, I know the desk has a monitor, a docking station, a phone, and I know that David is going to sit on my left and John is going to sit on my right. That's the desk I want to be sitting at. That experience is really important. So being able to manage simplicity for the user and simplicity for the facilities manager in operating a resource. Unfortunately, today, one of the biggest tech companies announced that they're letting go a lot of employees. They also announced, as part of that they're actually moving to more of a hot desking, hoteling type environment. Now, that same company a year and a half ago said that they were going to stick to assigned seats because it was part of the company culture. We cannot predict, as John mentioned, what is going to happen tomorrow. And even things that we are sure are right now may not be right tomorrow. So you need a tool that's flexible enough for facilities manager to manage their workplace environment. And I think that's important. And then again, the digital and the physical. It's no longer about everything in the physical. There's a lot happening on the digital side, and there needs to be a transition. You don't want a product that deals with your digital and a product that deals with your physical, which is why ecosystems with companies like Appspace and IDEM makes so much sense, because we provide the conversions between the digital and the physical, or the link between the digital and the physical. It's exciting. It's stressful. And I think for a lot of the people that are on this call today, I'm sure there are daily challenges that are popping up, and we need to be flexible. And I think having the right partners is really important there.
Dynamite. Again, tremendous amount to unpack there that we're going to get into. But let's hit one more question first. John, this is for you. Which technologies do you find helpful for managing the post-COVID flexible workplace? Which technologies are helpful in managing that flexible work?
Well, I think as I touched on earlier, we see a lot of need for scheduling, booking workspaces. It could be meeting rooms, it could be desks, and a lot of technology needed for wayfinding once you're in the office. Knowing that employees now have a choice to work from home or in the office. When they're in the office, taking all that effort, you want to make sure they have the best experience, the most productive when they're there. So those are what we're seeing. Space management tools.
Dynamite. Thomas, do you want to take a crack at that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think I explained that in the last two slides, but it's really a combination of technology, an employee app for sure to start your journey. And then when you enter the building, integrating building management system with new devices like visitor kiosk, wayfinding kiosk, workspace, devices like scheduling panels or desk pucks, integrating with sensors so you can track people count, air quality, room temperature. All of that is really important. So there's a lot more technology in the offices than there was. Maybe the good side is there's a little bit less real estate. So instead of putting your money in real estate, you put it in tech and you make the workplace experience just a level up.
Very wise. And you warmed up the room too. Now, let's all take a crack at that question. Go to thementi.com, enter the code, and see if you could select just 3 technologies. Take your time to peruse these. And I know some of our platforms have a bit of a lull, so you're waiting for the slide to come up. That's okay. As it comes up, read them through and see what 3 resonate the most in managing your workplace. If you're a peer seller, be objective. Think of a particular client. What is going to help them? And then I want John and Thomas to reflect as we see some of these things coming in.
I think one thing that's in very high demand that I've left out during my introduction are definitely the occupancy sensors. I think foremost of all, people want to understand how the spaces are being used. The facilities team, they want to know what types of spaces are in high demand. And what floors are being occupied and what percentage of the space are actually needed. So occupancy sensors are really a great tool to get that visibility.
Before Thomas reflects on what we're seeing on the screen, I've got to say, John, would you sell me some stock, or because I'm seeing workplace and meeting room reservation systems is a top priority, and
Appspace builds a great software for that as well. So you get
terrific. Thomas, that's a perfect segue. What do you think about what we're seeing here?
Oh, it's interesting to see. Obviously, a lot going in workspace and meeting room, and this topic could be expanded. I think we could talk about neighborhoods. I don't think people are necessarily going to book a set resource. They may be booking a seat within the neighborhood, and when they arrive on site, then there's a range of resources to pick from, and you'll use the panel that's there to actually check in or reserve that specific resource. We're seeing a lot of companies migrating from booking a desk to booking a seat in a neighborhood, and therefore the occupancy sensor plays, right? You set maximum capacity for a neighborhood, then I arrive, I've reserved my access to that neighborhood, and then I select the resource I need to do my work. It's interesting to see we are in an audience that's mainly facilities management, but digital signage gets around 10%, which means the workplace team understands they need to communicate better with their users as they get into the physical workplace. So I think it's good to see that combination. And obviously visitors, I think, is big, because a real workplace is not only about employees, it's about your customers, your partners, your contractors, and you got to bring them back as well, which means there's that consistent demand there.
Now, they're all important, but people are only allowed to pick 3. Quick comment from a layperson here. Wayfinding systems finishing last place. Do you think that's because people want intuitive simplicity? They don't want, and to me, wayfinding system sounds like I may have to learn something new.
Struggle a little bit, yeah.
I think wayfinding suffers from a reputation in the physical workplace. if you look at wayfinding when you're going from one building to the other and you're using Google Maps or Apple Maps, the experience is outstanding. But as soon as you enter the office, the experience is often very poor and outdated. The problem with wayfinding is now that you have a dynamic workplace where you're moving rooms around, resizing, you've got to keep your wayfinding up to date constantly. You can't build it once on a new site. You need a tool that's really powerful. What we're seeing is a lot of customers pushing us to improve the wayfinding experience, so it's something that is self-manageable, really a self-service product versus a partner maintained product. So I think you're going to see a lot of evolution in wayfinding, and it will catch up on its reputation and eventually become an important piece of it.
Love it. I want to remind everybody in the audience, regardless of whether you're here on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, to comment and give us a question too. If we'll weave it in, and not to worry. If not now, certainly as we move forward.
Yeah, one technology that we almost have not touched on is the air quality management system. I also see a lot of demand and usage of that to ensure to the employees that air is being filtrated frequently enough and temperature is kept at the right level. So
that's a great comment. And that's something people want to measure as well. They want to know that the CO2 in a conference room is not putting everyone to sleep. More eyes on that, and I want to see more. We all want to see more communication from the company building that into the internal brand, so people know they're psychologically and physically safe. So that brings us to measuring success. What are the most successful deployments out there, and how can we measure the success? John?
I think I'm first here, David. Listen, there are a number of ways to measure success. I would say the first thing is the pandemic has increased the need for a platform versus point product. Pre-pandemic, you would have a room scheduling software, you would have a visitor management software, and you would have a hot desking software and an employee app, and all of those things were separated, and they were okay because they were not mission critical. But now that they're mission critical and you're deploying them at scale, and one of our customers has 200,000 users logging into the app, reserving 103,000 reservable resources, you now have a real challenge of scale. And so what we're seeing is companies consolidating into a platform play. And by doing that, you're simplifying your management of the environment, but you're also saving a lot of money by replacing point products by a single platform play. Now, there are not a lot of platforms out there. A lot of companies have started merging, and you're starting to see a consolidation of point products under a single umbrella, but they're still point products. It's going to take time before you have a lot of real platforms. That's where Appspace is unique, because everything is grown in-house. On the long term, though, it's around data, understanding your users, and not only your users in how they're using the workspace, but how engaged are they with the workplace. Like, for example, as a user, how many times do I have a meeting per week, and how many meetings are in person? And those meeting in person, how many people are participating, and how many are in the physical workplace versus somewhere else around the world? That data will allow the facilities team to understand better how the workplace is utilized. We talked a lot about hot desking, which has the signification of you don't know who the user is sitting. You just know that someone is sitting. That's no good enough anymore, because you want to know the identity, not for contact tracing, we're past that. You want to know the identity of the user, so you know which departments are using most of the workspace, so you can do cross-billing internally. That's extremely important. And as real estate becomes really rare, you're going to want to make sure you value which users are using it, and you charge them accordingly to that as well, of course. And then finally, it's what you cannot monetize is the seamless experience or the employee experience. And we talked about that pharma company that ranked us #1 in terms of simplifying the workplace experience. What dollar amount can you put next to that? I think there, the real benefit is employee happiness. And we talked a lot about that over the last 2 years. Employees are moving now. They're not happy with what they're getting in their company, in their workplace experience. They're just finding another place to go. So the employee experience is important to keep employees happy, engaged, and therefore to retain them and make sure your talent stays on board, which is the biggest asset of any organization. So really big focus on the seamless experience. And that, again, doesn't have a dollar value attached to it.
Great point, Thomas. Taking what are the most successful deployments out there, same question, and asking John, how do we measure success?
Great. I'll share some experiences that we've seen from our clients, and I categorize these into three again. Um, we're seeing definitely a lot of interest from enterprises that manage large property portfolio across multiple countries, multiple cities, thousands of meeting rooms, spaces that they need to decide to keep or let go. And there, we've seen very aggressive plans to cut, both real estate costs and also just general administrative spending by reducing the space, reducing the staff, reducing the maintenance effort needed in spaces that are not being used. So I think technology are definitely one way. I mean, sensors are one way to measure, understand. As Thomas also said, data is here to really help people understand what's really happening in the workplace, what's being used, what's redundant, and what can be removed. And this is not just in the size of the office, but also in the types of space. Should we have more meeting rooms? Should we have more individual work desks? Should we have more team, huddle rooms? Or we should have more flexibility because usage pattern just keeps changing. So here we again back to the first theme. We're seeing technology, the flexibility allowed by technology, really helping here to reduce a lot of the unnecessary costs and help gain the ROI that they're looking for. And also, I think similar to what Thomas touched on, I think it's really important for enterprises to make sure that the work experience it's great, and also the company has the the right I would say beliefs and values that the employees share. So that works towards attracting talent, retaining talent. So we're seeing people listing these. Again, they don't necessarily have a monetary value attached to it, but as criteria that they're looking for when they deploy technology to manage large real estate portfolios. The second type of views that we're seeing from a lot of maybe not necessarily profit driven, but educational context, higher ed, universities, private and public alike. They're using tools to help classes manage attendance and also understand the types of space being in demand. We're seeing a lot of multi-function spaces now allocated in these universities. Some rooms are allocated so the student clubs, they could come in and reserve the space and use it when they need it. And even people from the nearby community are sometimes allowed to book rooms and rent spaces that are vacant, that are not being used on university campus, and being granted access maybe through a QR code, maybe through some kind of RFID that they obtain at the administrative office of the campuses. And here, booking systems are one big technology that helps make spaces multifunctional. And also we're seeing access control, as I said earlier, using QR codes to unlock doors and automatically lock them after the scheduled time. So these are some of the flexibility that organizations want, not necessarily for monetary interest. The third category is, I think, just looking at the technology itself. In the early phase, we're seeing a lot of ideas floating around. For example, sensors. Early pioneers have tried to maybe use home science sensors that are designed for home use in the enterprise, in the workplace context. Similarly, people have been trying to use consumer tablets to put them outside of meeting rooms and for the function of room reservation panels. And a lot of lessons are learned during that process. Um, for example, we all came to understand that if you keep a battery-powered device charging for extended period of time, a lot of them will actually swell and have have glasses broken on these devices. They're not safe to be used in a enterprise context. So in terms of what where we've seen success are people who already understand that they need to have a robust technology that's designed for continuous use 24/7, unattended. And the amount that they save from the potential maintenance of those devices already pay for a lot of the investment. And also the ability to manage all these devices remotely, so you don't have to have a staff on premise, on campus all the time, just to wait for the moment when the device fails, also helps. Now there are technologies available for you to remotely monitor the well-being of the device, not just the people using the spaces of the device, and preemptively schedule maintenance tasks to swap out devices that are close to the edge of failing before they actually fail. So these are being able to consider all these factors are really allow the client to be successful in the process of deploying technology.
It's time for our second poll question. All right, everybody, ready? If you came in late, let's go to you'll see the access right here on your screen. Go to menti.com. There's your code 3826630. How do you measure the success of your strategic planning? How do you measure the success of your strategic planning? And obviously, there's an ROI associated with everything. What ROI is your organization targeting when deploying a workplace management technology? If you have terrific eyes like I do, you can really focus and see all of those 6 choices. And don't be swayed by some of the early voters, whether it's improved workplace experience, improved space utilization. Um, Perhaps it's something you're still discussing. That means you need to call these 2 people right away. Insights for real estate decisions. I know we're using that quite a bit. And unlike what you heard from Thomas earlier, buildings are not going away. People are congregating. The interiors are changing dramatically. Just a plug for you CRE bound people in the audience. It's the interiors that have to supply a lot of different types of activities, from the library to you name it. Just a little plug for the built environment. Stay with it. Okay, so what are we seeing here? This is the early responders. The one that jumps out is space utilization, followed closely by insight for real estate decisions.
Yeah, I think both of them have a lot to do with managing real estate cost. And I have to say, I am, quite pleasantly surprised to see the not sure still discussing come up. I think we're brave enough to admit our, a lot of people, a lot of times people call us in is because they're really not sure. And I think this is one of the common things that we're finding among clients today. Even within one organization, different teams have different objectives. And sometimes we're just not sure what we're really looking for.
I'm glad you focused on that. Before Thomas gives us a reflection on what we're seeing in the chart, I'll share with you. We did a deep dive mosh pit, and a couple in the audience were a part of that, with 125 people spread over 15 topics. Musical chairs. After 20 minutes, beep, you move on to the next one. One of the many terrific World Workplace gatherings in Nashville. It was amazing this year compared to Orlando just a year ago, how many people are stepping forward and and making decisions, doing planning. I mean, and we don't have all the data, so we have to take a little bit on faith, but very impressive stuff. And this chart certainly reflects that. Anything else, Thomas, that John and I are missing as you look at, what's the ROI?
Thomas is muted.
Sorry, I was muted. What I think is exciting is to see 27% on improved workplace experience, which is at the same level as insights for real estate. And this says a lot. A lot of organizations would used to call facilities are now called workplace experience teams. And they're really focused on that workplace experience. I remember when I started my days in the Cisco world, going to the office was not going to the most exciting workplace. It was mainly going to the office because you had to. Now we're really talking about a workplace experience, and the fact that a lot of the people here are voting as one of the really important aspects of technology proves that we're on the right track there. It's really exciting.
I love that. I think if you add the insights and real estate decisions and improved space utilization together, those two are really the physical ROI. Walk into the CFO or whoever's making the financial decisions for the built environment and saying, hey, listen, let's make it more efficient. We've got 2 towers here. We probably need 1, but how are we going to keep people engaged? And there's the bright blue on the chart. So great question. And thank you everyone for these wonderful responses, reaffirming what we've been hearing from Thomas and John. That brings us to closing remarks. And like we do every week in the mosh pit, we'll hear closing remarks from these stellar enthusiasts of workplace that are actually making the changes. But those in the audience that are starting to do some of the planning and making some changes, give us a comment or ask our panel what you think is relevant, what you want to know more about. John, you said so much, and that even a layperson like me could pick up on. I mean, I can't say enough about just keep it intuitive. But then when you brought up ESG, I said, wow, every publicly traded company and those that want to be are pushing that big time because their earnings per share are going to be influenced by by people coming out and buying more stock without a doubt. And they do it if they're in line with ESG because the 5 largest institutions that buy stock are paying attention to ESG. So love those. Those are the 2 things that landed from what you said. Can you give us a closing thought or 2?
Yeah, I think also our European audience are really facing solid deadlines on some of the regulations that are going to be passed and enforcing strict rules on ESG, the management aspects of ESG. And I think just for the long term, I think we only have one Earth. I think we're all going to be working on saving this place that we live. So I think in the long term, the most competitive companies are the ones that are making the investment, preparing for that future where inevitably everyone has to help solve a part of this problem. Coming back to what was said during today's session, I really think I'm very happy. I really enjoyed doing my work every day because I know we're helping to build technologies and putting it out there to help people really address burning needs. And I really think if you facility managers, if you have not tried already, I mean, this is definitely the moment for you to start piloting at a small scale. Try something out. I know there's a lot of confusion, a lot of lack of consensus among the top tier. But I think it's quite important now to get a small budget to try something and learn what it can do, even on a very limited scale on one site, 2 sites, just so when the real problem, the real question comes, you'll have answers that you have prepared for. So hopefully, today by sharing our experience, we've shown light on some of the things that we've seen that are being done and finding very successful in the field, and maybe it'll be the lower hanging fruits for folks that have not started yet to get started.
Absolutely. There's a lot to go back and unpack, and at the end you'll have the link as well as contacts for all of us for follow-up questions. Switching over to Thomas, what really landed with me is safety, psychological safety. Of course, I want to feel comfortable, but that's all predicated on being physically safe and communicating that. Keeping things touchless, QR codes, etc. So that's just what resonated with the layperson. What are some of your closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's like John. I'm happy to go to work every day because I have the feeling we're onto something. We're really helping. And if I look at some of the questions or posts that were put, Srini posted a great article around companies like Google and Uber focused on happiness and comfort in the workplace. Isn't it awesome to participate in that happiness of going into the office? Or Claudia mentioned she loved air quality. I mean, I was focused about air quality before the pandemic, but mainly because I was running outdoor. Today, the fact that I can focus around air quality in the office and know ahead of time if the office is in good shape for me is really important. I love the wellness side of what we bring to the workplace as companies, both IDEA and Appspace, and I think that makes us really excited about the potential. I'll just close with one thing. I see a few people from Dubai, and I lived in Dubai for years. A few years ago, we did a new building deployment for one of the largest real estate groups, and they had put on the floor tiles that would generate energy back into the building. And we had this massive video wall in the lobby that would basically share how much employees were generating green energy back into the building. And that created a sense of excitement. Now, back in the days, it was leading edge. It was extremely expensive. It was never done at scale, only one building there. I think today there's enough technology and the price of technology has gone down and it's secure and it's managed at scale that everyone can do that. And I think it's fun to see pilots that were realized years ago actually become the norm. And I think that's what a lot of the companies out here are aiming to do. So really fun time to be in our space for sure.
Let's handle one tough question that's out there, which is we are in a transition. We know that. We don't know exactly what it's going to be like in 6 months or 61 months, but we're in a transition, and the utilization rate in these buildings is probably down around 8-10%. But you can feel the chart up, the push that's building. But for this transition, somebody in the room noted, hey, the experience is not here. I wonder how some of the things we're talking about today can accelerate that experience.
I'll take that one first, John, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Because I think it's the real question. A lot of companies invested in tech, but in the offices, not a lot of people are going back. And last week we had our customer advisory board, and one of the leading tech firms in California told us that the first time she went back into the office, she was super excited. The company had implemented the best smoothies and everything. So she was going there excited, and she arrived and got her smoothie and then was sitting and she was all alone. And she said, well, I'm not coming back to the office again if I'm going to be all alone. And I think the problem is we need to get into a dynamic where people are going back into the office, not for the smoothie, but to meet with people. And I think most of our customers are telling us that's the number one thing they want, is put people back together, not in necessarily a meeting room or huddle space or in a physical. They want people to meet again in person so they can re-experience the human contact, which is cannot be replaced by all the technology in the world, despite the efforts of a lot of companies out there. So I think we are in a momentum now where the software from home is there to help you know when someone is going in the office. If you're meant to meet with them normally over Microsoft Teams on Monday, then one of them is going to be in the office, it triggers you to tell you, hey, your colleague is going to be in the office. Why don't you meet in person instead? And then physical workplace comes into play. So we've got a mission to help bring people back together, and not only just by implementing a lot of devices in the workplace, but by initiating the experience from home first.
I agree with you, Thomas. I think I probably saw the same announcement as you did from one of the tech giants on the product that they will be launching next year, figuring out your work patterns and helping you, recommending actually the time for you to go into the office, because you're going to be running into people that you collaborate the most, and you're going to have a great time collaborating, brainstorming ideas. I think we all agree that the number one reason people head back to the office now is to look for their colleagues, for teamwork, for collaboration. And we'll definitely will see technology like that keep coming in. And also, I mean, with technologies like that, it can also help facilities team manage the occupancy. Again, using my term earlier, occupancy shaping. You could actually use tools like that to help recommend people to go in on a Friday, because your colleagues, the colleagues they will work the most are going to be there, and there's going to be freebies in the afternoon, and use that space, because otherwise it will be totally vacant. Yeah, we'll definitely see new technologies coming.
We also up on the screen we saw a YouTube friend, Nathan, had the question about technology addressing the experience outside of the office. To me, that's home, and it's also out the at the coffee shop. It's also at the down at the hardscape, out back near their office they check into occasionally. How can I know how technology could do it for decades. What are we seeing that's new? What's helping digital equity so the people that are outside of the office, maybe 80-90% of the time, feel like they're a part of the culture?
Maybe we'll take that first, Thomas, if you don't mind. So we've been collaborating with some of the co-working space operators. So I would say that that'll be one kind of space outside of the main office. And the problem they're trying to tackle there is how to provide this third space, almost like the flexible part of the main office, the continuum extending out of the main office. So with that, you need technology to ensure a great work experience, and make sure for example, communication that are being transmitted in these places are properly encrypted in accordance with corporate standards. In other words, you need to have extension of the main tech that's already in the main enterprise to be available at these third-party spaces. It could be, access to printers, it could be access to, cloud storage in a safe way. It could be, hygienic standards, health standards, things like that. So we're seeing work technology being in demand in these flexible spaces that are almost like an extension to what the corporate will demand.
Yeah, and I think Nathan's question is brilliant, and it's one that's popping up now. I traveled last week to New York after the customer advisory board to run the New York Marathon, and at the same time in New York happened to be one of the sales colleagues, our sales leader, and our actual company chairman. And we don't have an office in New York. So I said, how do I meet with them? Well, from the Appspace app, I created a virtual resource, which was basically a type of Starbucks coffee near Central Park. And I created that as my reservation. It's a temporary resource that only exists for the purpose of connecting people in person again, in a location where there are no offices to meet at. And that could be, like John mentioned, a co-working space. In this case, in my case, it was a coffee corner. But we ended up meeting in person, the three of us, and spent an hour around a coffee in a physical location. Now, the hybrid workplace is not the home office and the four walls of our office. It's also everything in between. Empowering that experience is going to be really important, because I think a lot of companies are realizing that, again, it's not about meeting in the office. It's about meeting together again. That's the mission we all have, connecting people back together. And then after, eventually, they'll go back to the office naturally, because that's where you feel the best. But I think this is really what is happening right now. And that question was really brilliant.
And we're really seeing a lot of comments both today and over the last several months that it's all about collaborating. I want to go and see people, and we have a cart and a horse thing here, and sounds like both of you are working on both, so we can move into the office having the technology there, the right amount of square footage based on what we've analyzed will need, and flexible spaces. I haven't heard anyone talk about changing for different events, but FM across the board, especially when that utilization rate will start to climb to 40-50% plus, or the space is downside, so it's being managed with target ratios at 80 or 90%, you're going to have to be changing that space out all the time, and having a digital signage program that can let people know what's coming and keep them plugged into the hectic changes as the workplace team flips the space is going to be really important, I think.
I agree.
I'm looking forward to seeing what John has in the pipeline in terms of new devices, because we used to talk about meeting rooms and desks, and it was hot desking and hoteling, but it's actually now hot spaces and hoteling spaces, and it's connecting people in huddle spaces, and there are less desks and maybe less rooms and more of the in-between. So I'm looking forward to a lot of new devices, John. I'm teeing you up here.
We'll make them coming. We'll make them coming.
Yeah, Fred, you're right. He's in charge of ops for the Rambling Wreck of Georgia Tech, and terrific insight. It really is about people first, collaborating, and then you fit your built environment, and that includes the third space, the third rail, the home front, are all part of what has to be managed. And more FM has that responsibility. I see in the chat that we've got the link for today's recording. What a terrific thing to share. And then you'll also in a short bit have all three of our contacts. The only reason you would want to connect with me is because we're taking the same discussion, and the person that did all of the hiring for Airbnb, Autodesk, Lucasfilm Studios, coming in this Friday into the mosh pit to handle this very same topic. So we're going to hear from we're going to hear from talent HR's perspective of how this should be addressed. So for those of you that really care about the details of technology, there may be a few Johns in the audience and a Thomas or two, but I don't think too many. I think it's going to be a lot of that human resource connection. But it'll be great to take both of these links and share them. And here's our information. John at IDEA and Thomas at Appspace. What a blast I've had. This has been a wonderful hour.
It's been fun working with you, David and Thomas.
Exciting. Thanks a lot for the time.
Wonderful. Well, thank all three of you for your insight and bringing that to us. I think we, as you said, we don't really know maybe what we're going to, but hybrid is here. There's a lot of needs that our FMs are facing. It is about the people. It is about how they utilize the space. One of the comments about data, I want to emphasize that because here at IFMA, we see that a lot. FMs, you've got to capture your data, understand how your space is being used now, then when you bring in some technology and what it looks like after that. So once again, I do want to thank everybody here, from David to John to Thomas to everybody else who's been participating and sharing your comments and insights. Don't forget to like the video that you have been watching, whether you're watching live or if you've watched it recorded. There is the link. Reach out to IFMA if you have any additional questions. We do want to continue to connecting with you as well. So with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.